Good morning, students. Myself Prema. Welcome, students. Students, today we are going to study the third chapter of history, that is India's internal challenges. Now, in this chapter, we are going to learn about some internal challenges that India faces. So, we shall see some internal challenges like first is the separatist movement. The separatist movement means here some people in India they wanted to be separated from India and they want to form an independent country. Other issue is issues of the Northeast India that we are going to study in detail about that. 8 states Northeast India, it comprises of 8 states. So what are the problems that were there in the Northeast India that we are going to study. Next we will studying about the Naxalism, communalism. Communalism means that is division of the society on the basis of religion. That problem that we are going to study. Next is the regionalism. Regionalism, that is also one of the major problem in India, that we all know that in India 28 states are there. In that different regions are there. So each and every region they are having pride over their regions. So regionalism problem when it is going to arise when one one region they are going one region people they are going to consider themselves superior as compared to the other. So first we are going to study about the unrest in Punjab. Now Akali Dal was the major political party in Punjab. Now students, still in today's period ceremony, Akali Dal it is one of the major political party in Punjab. So in 1973, the Akali Dal passed the Anandpur Sahib resolution. Anandpur Sahib, it is a place in Punjab. So the following demands were made in this resolution. So first one is Chandigarh should be made part of Punjab. What was the first demand? Chandigarh should be made a part of Punjab. Now Chandigarh, we all know that it is an union territory. Now previously earlier know what Punjab and Haryana both were together. Later on it was separated. Two different states were created. So both the states they wanted Chandigarh Chandigarh in their states. But Chandigarh later it was declared as an union territory. So Chandigarh it is the capital of both Punjab and Haryana. Next, the Punjabi speaking parts in other states should be included in the state of Punjab. So wherever people they were speaking Punjabi, they should be included in Punjab. Recruitment of people from Punjab in the Indian army should be increased. Means more people they should be recruited in the Indian army, and that people they should be more from Punjab. And more autonomy should be given to the state of Punjab. More autonomy means here more decision making power should be given to the state of Punjab. So these 4 points were included in the Akali Dal Sahib resolutions. That was means this demand was put forward by whom? By the Akali Dal in the year 1973. Akali Dal came to power in Punjab in 1977. So while taking charge, they asked for a larger share of river waters for Punjab. Now when they came into power, so along with that demands, no, two more demands were included here. So what was there? They wanted a larger share of the river waters for Punjab. Now from the Punjab, we know that five rivers are flowing, students. That is Satluj, Chenab, Ravi, Beas, and Jhelum. Now these rivers they are flowing from Punjab and afterwards they are going in Pakistan. So what was the demand? They wanted a larger share of river waters for Punjab and holy city status for Amritsar. And for the city, that is Amritsar city, they wanted what title should be given? Holy city status. Now we know that Amritsar it is famous for the Golden Temple. So along with the old demands, means along with that 4 demands, these 2 demands were also placed. Now in 1980, the movement for independent Khalistan took root in Punjab. Independent Khalistan means they started a movement for independent country, took root in Punjab. During that period, the leader of the Akali Dal was Sant Harcharan Singh Longwala. He used to direct his activities from the Golden Temple to stage protest. On the other side of the Golden Temple, armed followers started gathering around the strong Khalistan supporter Sant Jarnal Singh Brindanwala. So two leaders were there. One was Sant Harcharan Singh Longwala and other was Sant Jarnal Singh Brindanwala. Now he was these two were the supporters. They started the movement. Now during that period the terrorist activities had begun and Brindanwala was arrested in the year 1981. So at that time terrorist movement started, and this person Brindanwala, he was arrested for the accused of the murder of newspaper editor Lala Jagat Narayan. So why he was arrested? For the murder of Lala Jagat Narayan. Due to this development, after the arrest of Brindanwala, so after this the situation worsened, and due to this development, presidential rule was imposed in Punjab in 1983. So after the arrest of the Brindanwala, what happened? Many revolts, lots of revolts took place in Punjab. The situation was not under control. The government was not able to control the situations. So as a result, the central government, it imposed presidential rule in Punjab in the year 1983. Now Brindanwala went to stay at a religious place called Akal Takht. So here Akal Takht, it is a building near the near the Golden Temple. Near to that only one building place is there, that is called as Akal Takht. So as soon as he was released from the jail, he went to stay there. Now Brindanwala's followers captured the Golden Temple and built a barricade of sandbags over there. So when he went to stay there, so later on his followers, those people, those who were following him, they captured the Golden Temple and they built a barricade. Barricade means a barrier, एक fence जैसा बना लिया था of sandbags over there. Now the area looked like the fort. So afterwards the whole area, it was looking like a fort, एक किले जैसा बना दिया था उन लोगों ने. This greatly disturbed the peace in Punjab. So as a result, the peace in Punjab was disturbed. It was a major challenge to the Indian democracy. So why it became a major challenge to the Indian democracy? Because some people of Punjab, they have formed their own army and they started protesting with the government. Next we are going to study about Operation Blue Star. Operation Blue Star means here it is a name that is given, code name that is given by the military. Now the main task of getting the terrorists out of the Golden Temple was entrusted. Entrusted means responsibility was given to Major General Kuldeep Singh Barar. Now this person, he was given the task of removing or killing the terrorists out of the Golden Temple. Now on the morning of 3rd June 1984, the Operation Blue Star started, and the operation ended on 6th June. So it started on 3rd June 1984 and it ended on 6th June. In this military operation, the Indian Army functioned with great restraint. Great restraint means with great self-control, discipline. So here, that is the operation was started by whom? General Kuldeep Singh Barar. He was given the task, Operation Blue Star. So the operation, it was led by General Kuldeep Singh Barar and he handled the situation with great restraint. The Indian Army functioned with great restraint and the operation ended with the death of Brindanwal and other terrorists. Now in the year 1986, an operation had to be conducted against terrorists in the Golden Temple. So once again another operation was also carried by the Indian Army in the year 1986 to remove the terrorists in the Golden Temple. And here again it was given the names. This operation was given the name as Operation Black Thunder. Now after this action was taken up, the process of establishment of peace in the Punjab picked up a momentum. So after that, it means here two operation has been taken by the military. One was the Operation Blue Star, other was the Operation Black Thunder, to remove the terrorists out from the this Golden Temple, and they were successful. And afterwards here, the main important thing of the government was to establish peace in Punjab. Next here, students, do you know a military expedition taken up with a particular objective is called an operation? Means any activity that is done by the military to take action against any activity that is against the terrorists. So at that time, for that activity, they are giving the name. So it is called an operation. Operation Blue Star was an operation undertaken to evict. Evict means to remove the terrorists hiding in the Golden Temple. So here Operation Blue Star that we have studied, so that was undertaken by the Indian National Army. And what was their main intention? Their main intention was to remove the terrorists that were hiding in the Golden Temples. So that was the most important duty of the Indian National Army. So in this we have studied about the Operation Blue Star and Operation Black Thunder. Next we are going to study about the issues concerning Northeast India. Now Northeast India consists of the 8 states of Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Sikkim and Tripura. So Northeast India, it consists of 8 states. So international borders of India touch each of the states to the varying extent. So these states, 8 states which are there. So here what is called international border of India, they are touching, for example, Myanmar, Bhutan, Nepal. So these countries, they are touching the border of these states. Now these states are different with respect to ethnicity. Ethnicity means यहाँ पे हो जाए cultural values, language and cultural diversity. That is, all these states know they are having their own culture, their own language. They worship their own god and all. So the first Prime Minister of independent India took the lead in bringing the tribes living in these areas into the mainstream of the country. So who was our first Prime Minister? Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. So this person, he has taken the effort of bringing this tribal living in this area. Tribal means यहाँ पे mostly कौन से लोग रहते हैं? आदिवासी लोग. So that people were living. So he tried to bring these people into the mainstream of the country. Mainstream means say, जो आदिवासी पीपल जो रहते हैं वो टोटली मीन्स मॉडर्नाइज रहते हैं, उनको मॉडर्न आइडियाज़ के बारे में नहीं, दे आर नॉट कनेक्टेड विद द मॉडर्न वर्ल्ड. सो दिस पर्सन ही वांटेड, ही मेड एन एफर्ट टू ब्रिंग दैट पीपल इनटू द मेन स्ट्रीम ऑफ द कंट्री. सो इन 1954 he formed the Northeast Frontier Agency, that is NEFA area, comprising of the territories on the Sino-Indian border. Sino-India means border means India-China's border, and the tribal areas towards the north of Assam. So in 1954, so he formed, that is the Northeast Frontier Agency was formed, and this area, and it included the compressing of the territories of the Sino-Indian borders. And Nehru took the position of bringing about the development of hundreds of tribes in these parts while preserving their culture. So Nehru, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, he decided to bring about the developments of this tribal group of people while preserving their culture, means while bringing the development, while providing them education, jobs, and also their culture will not be affected. So special provisions have been made with respect to these areas in the 6th schedule of the Indian Constitution. Now students, altogether in our constitution we are having 12 schedules are there, 12. So in that, the 6th schedule which is mentioned, no, in that 6th schedule some rights has been given to these people, this to these tribal people. Now what is mentioned here? In that what is mentioned, that is the people, those who are living there, living that people, other people from India, they can go there, they can go towards the Northeast Indian part, but they can't purchase any land and all, but they can take that on lease. So why this provision has been mentioned in the 6th schedule? To protect the rights of the tribal people. 1965, the responsibility of administering this area was given to the Ministry of External Affairs. Ministry of External Affairs means here foreign ministry. They were given the work. The Northern Eastern Council Act of 1971 was supposed to advise the central government. So they have to give the advice, suggestions to the central government regarding aspects of common interest in economic and social space. In the economic field and in the social field, they can guide the central government regarding the interstate transport, electricity, flood control, etc. Now we all know, students, in the northern eastern part, which river we are having? Brahmaputra river. Now that river, it is flowing from Arunachal Pradesh to Assam, and every year we know that flood is there in this river, and it is bringing a lot of water, and because of that flood is there, many people every year they are losing their lives. About the media, in the news and all, you must have seen that of the Assam it is shown that many people they are losing their life, so much destructions is there. So that is mostly about the Northeast India. Everything is not mentioned, but they are having a lot of problems. So here government, it has made the effort, central government, to bring about the development in the transport, electricity, and here measures has been taken by the government to control the. So students, we are going to study about the Northeast states. Now first we will be studying about Mizoram. The tribes in the Northeast India have an ancient history. When India became independent, the government gave administrative autonomy to the districts of the Mizo majority areas of the Lusai Hills. Now we know in that Mizoram many various hills are there. That for example Ghana, Khasi, Jaintia, Lusai. So various hills are there. So in the Lusai Hills, Mizo majority Mizo people they were living. So when the States Reorganization Commission was appointed in the year 1954, the expectation of the people in this area grew. Now students, after that when we got the independence, so at that time India was divided into three sections, that is India was there, Pakistan was there, and one other group was of the princely states. Now these princely states which were there, no, they got the right that they can merge with anyone. So but because of the effort of the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, many of the princely states they started merging with India. They came into India, and afterwards the states reorganization, how to reorganize these states. So that was one issue was there. So for that purpose, this commission was appointed in the year 1954. Now the expectation of the people in this area grew. Mizo leaders started demanding autonomous Mizo province. So self-governing free Mizo they started demanding. In 1959, the territory of Mizoram experienced several drought. So drought problem was there in the Mizoram, that is वहाँ पे सूखा पड़ गया था. During this famine, Mizo leader Laldenga served the common people. So as water shortage was there, so because of agriculture production was less, so food shortage problem was also there. So the Mizo leader Lal Denga he started helping the common people. In 1961, Lal Denga established an organization called Mizo National Front, that is MNF. He asked for Greater Mizoram, an independent state carved out of the Tripura, Manipur, and Mizo majority areas from the Lusai Hills. So later on, this person, what he asked, he started for a Greater Mizoram, and that an independent country he wanted that should be cut off from the Tripura, Manipur, Mizo majority areas, that is from the Lusai Hills. Who started demanding? That is Lal Denga. So when this Mizo National Front, it was formed in which year? That is was formed in the year 1961. In 1966, Mizo National Front announced the emergence of independent Mizoram. So 1966 Mizo National Front they announced that they are that is Mizoram, it is an independent nation, and they start disobeying, means they were not following the orders of the Indian government. So Prime Minister Indira Gandhi at that time handled the situation firmly and suppressed the rebellion. So that is the rebellion, the protest that was started by the. So here Indira Gandhi she handled the situations and strongly and suppressed the that movement. When the situation calmed down in 1972, the Mizo party Mizo majority area was given the status of union territory. So in 1972, when the conditions it came under control, so that Mizo majority area, that is the tribal area which was there, so that was given the status of a union territory. In 1985, Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi he had an agreement with the Mizo National Front, and Mizoram was given the status of a full-fledged state. So later on discussion was made between by Rajiv Gandhi, and he agreed with the Mizo National Front, and here Mizoram it was given the position, means it was given the status of a full-fledged state. And when it became a full-fledged state, so at that time Lal Denga he became the chief minister of the states. So who became the chief minister? That is Lal Denga. Lal Denga he became the chief. Next we are going to study about Nagaland. Now the Naga tribe in northeast India is known as a martial tribe. Martial means it is a military tribe. The Naga tribe had settled in the eastern Himalayas, the Naga Hills, border areas of Assam and Myanmar. Now in 1946, some educated Naga youth they established an organization called Naga National Council. So Naga National Council it was formed by because of some educated Naga youth. Later they made a demand for an independent state of Nagaland. So they also demanded for an independent state of Nagaland, and they were led by that is Angami Zafu Fizo. So the name of the leader was Angami Zafu Fizo. In 1954, the Naga National Council announced the establishment of an independent federation of Nagaland. Means by themselves only they announced in the year 1954 they announced that Naga National Council is an independent federation state of it is an independent state of Nagaland. In 1955, skirmishes means clashes happened between the local Nagas and the soldiers of Assam. So yes, skirmish that is in 1955 fight or clash has happened between the local Nagas and the soldiers of the Assam Rifles. Assam Rifles means it is a part of the Indian Army only. So military action was taken to suppress the skirmishes. So against this, the skirmishes, that is the clash that took place between the local Nagas and soldiers, it was suppressed. Several rounds of discussions took place between the central government and the Naga National Council. So here Many rounds of discussion took place between the central government and the Naga National Council, and central government decided to give the Naga majority territory to the status of a union territory. Central government decided that Naga majority territory will be declared as a union territory. Nagaland was made a full-fledged state on 1st December 1963 by putting together the Naga majority territory and part of Tuensang. So later on, that is on 1st December 1963, here Nagaland it was declared as a full-fledged state. Next, we are going to study about Assam. In 1983, there was an agitation means protest staged by all Assam Students Union and Assam Gan Sangram Parishad over the question of the dominance in Assam of Bengali migrants. So here, this agitation protest was why the protest was there, because of the Bengali migrants. Now we all know in 1971 there was a war was there for the liberation of Bangladesh. War was fought. So at that time when the war was going out, so many Bangladeshis they came into India. They came into India as a refugee, and they started staying. Mostly they came and they started settling in Assam. So in 1985, so Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, Central Home Minister Shankar Rao Chauhan, and Assamese leader Praful Kumar Mohanto signed an accord. Accord means agreement was signed, and it was decided to send the Bangladeshi citizens who had infiltrated in Assam back to their original places. Infiltrated, that is, they have illegally they came and they started staying in Assam. So it was decided that people they will be sent back to their original places. So in 1986, elections were held for Assam Legislative Assembly, and Praful Kumar Mohanto of Assam, that is Gan Parishad, became the new chief minister. Now, due to this democratic process, it became possible to establish peace in Assam. So later on, here who became the chief minister? New chief minister of Assam, that is Praful Kumar Mohanto. He became the chief minister of Assam, and because of the democratic values and principles and also it became possible to establish peace in Assam. Now about the migrants we have studied, no, that is the Bangladeshi migrants who came here. So still that people they are staying there only, and government they have able to control the situation. Next, Arunachal Pradesh. Now, in 1954, NEFA was created, and in 1972 it began to be called as Arunachal Pradesh. Now, Arunachal Pradesh, no, it is called as the region of rising sun. Same way as Arunachal Pradesh. तो अरुणाचल प्रदेश रीजन ऑफ राइजिंग सन वाई इट इज़ कॉल्ड बिकॉज बोला जाता है कि वहाँ से ही सूरज उगता है. सेम वे जापान को जैसे बोलते हैं लैंड ऑफ राइजिंग सन, तो हियर अरुणाचल प्रदेश इट इज़ कॉल्ड एज द रीजन ऑफ राइजिंग सन. On 20th February 1987, it got the status of a constituent state. So on 20th February 1987, it became a state. Now during the period from 1960 to 2000, Northeast India has progressed towards a more matured democracy. This area is on the path of progress through industrialization, spread of education. Now we have studied about the Northeast states. So here, with the help of democracy, here government has made the efforts to bring about the changes in that states with the help of industrialization, spread of educations and all. Next students, in this part we are going to study about Naxalism. Now Naxalite movement. Now this movement started at Naxalbari in Darjeeling district in West Bengal. So it's what started at Naxalbari. Naxalbari is the name of the village that is located in Darjeeling district in West Bengal. Now, before studying the Naxalite movement, no, just I am going to give the introduction. Here, see students, in the villages, no, farmers, many farmers, they are very much poor. They are not having their own land and all. They are landless laborers and all. So, for earning their livelihood, they are working under the Jamindars. And these Jamindars, no, they are exploiting these laborers. They are not providing pay and minimum pay to them. So they are exploited as they are exploited by the Zamindars. So some people at that time only they were against this and they started raising their voice. So they protested against the Zamindars and they started raising the voice for the landless laborers. But in the starting it was good for them, but afterwards these people know they started taking violent actions. So they started taking guns in their hand and they started taking action against the government. They started not to follow the rules of the government. They started attacking the police officers and all. So as the movement it became as these groups of people they became violent, so it was not good. Means here the main intention has been moved. So the Naxalites groups organized the small landholding farmers and landless land laborers and took charge of their lands, put up red flags and declared that area as free territory in 1967. So these Naxalite groups of people, what they did, जो स्मॉल होल्डिंग फार्मर्स थे जिनके पास छोटे छोटे पीस ऑफ लैंड थे, सो दे ब्रॉट दैट लैंड टुगेदर एंड टुक द चार्ज ऑफ देयर लैंड्स, and on that area they put up red flags and declared that area as a free territory in the year 1967. Now all those movements that took inspiration from this rebellion are called as the Naxalite movement. Now same type of conditions were prevailing in the entire India in different parts of the country. So so that people, they got inspirations from this group, from the incident that has taken place in Naxalbari. So from that they got inspirations, and such types of protests it was seen in different parts of the country, and from that means from that time only this movement came to be called as the Naxalite movement. So understood what is Naxalbari? It started at Naxalbari in Darjeeling district in West Bengal. The movement had the objectives of establishing action committee to raise a voice against the exploitation of the farmers by the landlords and confiscate the land of the landlords and distribute it among the tenants. So what was the objective of this? So they had formed and established an action committee to raise a voice against the exploitation of the farmers. And afterwards, what they did, they confiscate the lands. They started taking the lands from the landlords and they started distributing it toward the tenants, that is the local inhabitants जो थे उनके बीच में distribute कर रहे थे. So that was good, but later on the movement strayed away from its objectives. Strayed away means it got separated from the objective and it took recourse to terrorism. So यहाँ पे एक alternative दूसरा choice इनका दूसरा way हो गया था, that is they took the path of terrorism to prevent any government schemes and welfare policies from reaching the common people. So these people later on what they started, they did not allow any government schemes to reach the common people, that is related with the, if the government wanted to give land to the people, they did not allow that schemes to reach to the people regarding the water supply, construction of railways. So that schemes they were not allowing to reach to the common people. The Naxalites started a parallel system by rejecting the democratic system. So here a parallel government system was started by this Naxalist group. Means they were they disobeyed, they were not following our government, means our government which is there, they were against that and they have formed their own government, and that is parallel government was established by them. This made Naxalism a serious challenge to the India's internal security. So it became a big challenge. The movement was mainly located in West Bengal. Later, the movement spread to the East Godavari in Andhra Pradesh, parts of Vishakhapatnam, Karimnagar in Telangana, Adilabad, Bastar, Rajnandangao and Sukma in Chhattisgarh, Gadchiroli, Bhandara and parts of Chandrapur in Maharashtra, Balghat and Mandala in Madhya Pradesh and Koraput in Orissa. So mostly these areas, no students, they were, it was the tribal areas, forest areas थे, जो tribal people रहते थे, वहाँ पे ही हुआ था ये सब. In order to maintain their influence, the Naxalis established an organization called People's Liberation Guerrilla Army. So for having the influence, to keep the influence on the people, so for that purpose they have formed their own army, and the name of the army was People's Liberation Guerrilla Army. Next we are going to study about communalism. Communalism, it is a serious threat to the unity of our country. Now communalism means it is mostly related with the religion. When one person thinks that my religion is superior to other religions, so this problem arises. Communalism emerges out of a narrow religious pride. So this problem arises that when one person thinks that whatever is there, only my religion is there, my religion is superior others, and they don't respect the other religion. Now the British sowed the seeds of communalism in our country. We all already study about the British period. So they have sowed the seed of communalism. That is, they separated the Hindus and the Muslims. People of different religions have happily lived together since many centuries. There is nothing wrong in people of different religions living together in a country, while being duly proud of their own religions. Now see, what is told that here there nothing is wrong when people of different religious group they are living together in a country and they are duly proud, means they are proud of their own religions, unless they are going to hurt the sentiments of the other. But when this pride becomes excessive, then it turns into bigotry. Bigotry means it becomes unfair. They start hating the other religion. So that prideness about their religion, when it is going to hurt the sentiments of the other religion, so it becomes bigotry. Each of one of them begins to consider their religion superior and others as inferior. So in this situation, one thinks that his religion is superior to the other. So this leads to religious fanaticism. फैंटिज्म मतलब उसको हिंदी में बोलते हैं ना, एकदम धार्मिक कट्टर होता है जो, वो रिलीजन के नाम पे कुछ भी करने को तैयार हो जाता है. सो फैंटिज्म इज द बेस ऑफ कम्युनलिज्म. इट मेक्स वन ओब्लिवियस ऑफ नेशनल इंटरेस्ट. तो यहाँ पे है जो भी है रिलीजन है, सो दे हियर दे डोंट थिंक अबाउट द नेशनल इंटरेस्ट, व्हाट इज गुड फॉर द कंट्री. People of different religions don't trust each other. They become suspicious of each other. People, they don't trust each other and they look each other as enemy. So here, countrymen, that is compatriots following different religions, they are looked upon as enemies. And even these people, they don't come together on the festival. Means people, different religious groups of people, even on the festivals also, they don't come together. As a result, it becomes difficult for everybody to come together and get organized for their demands and rights as citizens. So here, government, they have given us different rights. Some problems are there. So if there is a need to come together and come together and raise their demands, so it becomes impossible to bring the people together and raise their voice together for the demands. Fanaticism makes the perspective, that is the at events and peoples, means people, they start living towards each other in a very unjust way. Some people begin to think of economic and social questions also in the framework of their own religion. That is the economic and social questions they are asking, issues which are there on them also, they start looking on the base, means it should be framed in such a way of their own religion. Some people of all religions think that since they belong to a particular religion, they have no influence in politics. And some people, what they start thinking, as they are belonging to this particular group, means I am a Hindu, I am a Muslim, so because of that I am having no influence in the politics. And they begin to, and they believe that they are being treated unjustly, means government is not giving proper treatment to them. They hold the idea that government is partial against their religion. Government is not paying proper attention. Government is partial to their religion. In such conditions, they became too sensitive about their religion and their co-religions. So in such conditions, what happened? They became very much sensitive for their religion and along with and towards the other religious group of people also. If anybody speaks about the people of their religion or insults the religious symbols knowingly or unknowingly, revolts break out because of this kind of thinking. So in such conditions, whatever people knowingly or unknowingly, he or she may speak something, and because of that against the religion. So as a result, without thinking whether it is correct or not, revolts break out. People, they start doing दंगे वगैरह होना start हो जाते हैं. So hundreds of innocent people are killed. Public property worth crores of rupees is damaged. So whenever revolts break out, so we all know what will be affected. जब दंगे वगैरह होते तो क्या होता है? Hundreds of people, they are losing their lives. Public property is damaged. So when revolts take place, public property, it is damaged. Public peace is disturbed. And due to the bitter memories of the revolts, people are estranged from each other. So when revolts take place, so because of that, what happened? People's, they are instant from each other. They don't believe each other. जो दंगे होते तो उसकी कड़वाहट लोगों के मन में रह जाती है. So they don't trust each other. So mutual trust receives a setback. Trust between the people is the basis of coexistence. So in a country, in a society, what is necessary? Trust is necessary between people. So if trust breaks, social unity receives a blow. How can national unity be achieved without social unity? So what is told that, so in a society, if trust is not there among the people, so social unity can be there, or students, no, social unity cannot prevail. And if social unity is not there, so national unity cannot be achieved without social unity. Hence it is necessary that we all counter this religious communalism with all our strength. So what is necessary? We should all counter this religious communalism. Means some people are there on the name of religion, they are disturbing the peace of the society. Because of them, the peace of the society is disturbed. So we have to counter them, we have to oppose them. For this, we should mix with the people of different religions. So for this, what we can do? First of all, we should mix with the people of different religions. We should accept the good practices and ideas of each other. Whatever the good practices are there in each other, let's say Hindu, okay, Muslim, Sikhs, each and every religion, they are having their own good points. So we have to practice and follow the ideas of each other. We should be able to look at and understand our economic and social problems rationally, and whichever the economic problems or social problems we are facing, so that we have to look towards them, we have to look in a very rational way. Why that problems are arising, first we have to find out. We should not mix with this question with the religion. So the economic and social problems connected with the religion. We should search for the economic, political, or historical reasons that are responsible for disturbing religious harmony. Means because what are the reasons that are responsible for disturbing the religious peace in the society, whether they are economic factors, political factors, or historical reasons, that we have to find out. So this is the only way to put an end to communalism and strengthen national unity. So in that way we can strengthen the national unity. Next, we are going to study about regionalism. Now, regionalism means having excessive pride about one's region. So, students, regionalism problem when it is going to arise when one person shows excessive more prideness about one's region, means he thinks that his region is superior to the other region. It is one thing to introduce oneself as a Bengali or a Marathi person. But if I think that because I am a Bengali or a Marathi, I am superior to others from other provinces, it can be termed as excessive regional pride. Now see, here in our country means we are having different states are there, people they are belonging to different regions. So if one person is going to introduce himself as that I am a Bengali or a Marathi, so it is okay. But if that person is going to tell I am a Bengali and I am a Marathi, and because of that I am, my province is superior to your other province, so it can be, that can be termed as excessive regional prideness. Means that person is showing the prideness, he is showing the excessive prideness about his own region. The love for one's province turns morbid, it becomes unfair due to this kind of excessive regional pride. It is natural to feel love for one's province, but it should not become abnormal. So yes, each and every person they are proud of their region. So that prideness is good. Means love for one's own province is good, but it should be in a limited way. It should not become abnormal. It should not hurt the sentiments of the other person. Regionalism thrives. Thrives means flourish on regional imbalance in development. In the post-independence period, some states achieved more progress while some states remained backward. So what is told there? Here, this problem it is arising because of the difference in the regional imbalance. So after independence, some states in India they have progressed more, while some states they have remained undeveloped. So that is one of the reason for regionalism. For example, states like Maharashtra, Gujarat, Punjab, Tamil Nadu developed economically and industrially, they are more developed, whereas states like Odisha, Bihar, Assam remained undeveloped economically and industrially. So states like Maharashtra, Gujarat, Punjab, Tamil Nadu students they are more developed, whereas states like Odisha, Bihar, Assam they remained undeveloped economically and industrially, they are backward. So economic development and reforms are the foundation of progress. Now we all know. So they are the foundation of the progress of any region. As a result, the states that develop economically can also achieve progress in other areas like education, health, and culture. So the states, it is what is told that the regions which are economically more developed, so their education facilities will be there for the people, health facilities will be good for the people, and the culture is also going to develop. The states which have not developed in this manner remain backward in education and civic amenities. And here, the state economically, whichever the states are backward. So in that regions, no education problem will also be there along with the other facilities. Also, the people they are not going to get health problems will health facility will not be available to the people. Education will not be available to the people. So the opportunities of development available to the people in developed states are not possible for the people in the backward states. So that type of opportunity which the developed regions people they are getting, so that opportunities are not available to the people those who are living in the backward states. So they are harassed by problems of education. So here what is told, the backward people, the regions which are economically backward, so that people they are going to face different types of problems. So students, here people of the, that is the undeveloped states, no they think that they are being cheated by the government, they are kept away from the benefits of the development, and because of this the understanding between the states is broken, and this in turn has a negative impact on the national, means that is going to affect the national unity. The economic imbalance that has endangered this understanding needs to be set right. So here government has to make the efforts. The economic imbalance which is there between the developed and the undeveloped states, that has to be removed, and the means they has to get a good response from the people. Our government makes efforts in that direction. So government is making the efforts in that direction. Now regionalism can affect developed as well as undeveloped states. Its effects can be seen on both developed and undeveloped states. The people of developed states begin to believe that they are superior due to their superior history and culture. Hence, they have developed that much. So here, the developed states people which are there, no, they start feeling themselves as superior to others because they are having a superior culture, because of a superior history and culture. And then they begin to look down upon the people of underdeveloped regions. So, and that means equal treatment is not given to the people of the undeveloped states, and they are not willing to share the benefits of the development with the backward states. Moreover, whatever development means whichever progress they have achieved, so they are not ready to share it with the undeveloped states people, those who are of the backward states. On the other hand, the people from backward areas need to arouse their regional identity to organize themselves, and for this they try to unnecessarily glorify local traditions and cultures to prove their uniqueness. On the other hand, what happens now, people from the backward areas, so they come together for showing their own regional identity. So this simply they start glorifying their uh, local traditions and cultures. So this leads to regionalism, and because of that, which problem is going to arise? Regionalism problem is going to arise, and this, if regionalism problem is there within the country, so it is going to affect the national unity. So students, in this chapter we have studied about the various points, that is about the unrest in Punjab. We have studied issues regarding the northeast India, that we have studied. Along with that, we have studied about the Naxali movement, communalism, regionalism, that we have studied. So from this chapter, the assignment for you student, it will be give reason will be there. It becomes necessary to carry out the operation Blue Star, and second will be we should fight communalism with all our strength. So two give reasons you are going to have, and one more, that is one brief answer you have to write. What can we do to end communalism? So altogether three assignment is there.